the Watchtower of January 15th, 2008. Counted worthy to be guided to fountains of waters of life. This Watchtower study is about the faithful and discreet slave, the human leadership of Jehovah's Witnesses. This is how the Watchtower explains it.
God's Word identifies anointed Christians who are caring for Christ's interest on earth as the faithful and discreet slave. When Christ inspected the slave in 1918, he found those anointed ones on earth to be faithful in providing spiritual food at the proper time. Hence Jesus, the Master, was pleased thereafter to appoint them over all his belongings. In this way, before receiving a heavenly inheritance, anointed ones serve other worshippers of Jehovah here on earth.
There are two important terms here. The anointed are Jehovah's Witnesses who are selected to go to heaven, also known as the faithful and discreet slave. There are over 9,000 witnesses who claim to be anointed, but this is where the concept falls apart. In actuality, only the governing body, a small group of anointed men based in New York, make the administrative and doctrinal decisions for all other witnesses, anointed or not. Notice how the anointed are described here.
Genuine anointed Christians do not demand special attention. They do not believe that their being of the anointed gives them special insights beyond what even some experienced members of the great crowd may have.
Keep that in mind. No special insights. How then is the anointed channeling God's spiritual direction?
The greatly diversified wisdom of God can become known only through Jehovah's channel of communication, the faithful and discreet slave. They constitute the channel that Jehovah uses to provide his people with instruction and spiritual direction.
Here is the critical difference.
That faithful and discreet slave is represented today by the governing body of Jehovah's Witnesses, which has as its publicity agent the Watchtower Bible and Tract Society. Most appropriately, that faithful and discreet slave has also been called God's channel of communication.
The vague terminology makes it difficult for both anointed and non-anointed witnesses to notice that they're simply putting their faith and loyalty in a few men who reside in New York. Notice how this Watchtower study continues to enforce the idea that all anointed are involved in leadership.
They are not independent, but willing to serve under the direction of the heavenly King and his anointed brothers on earth.
Not the 9,000 anointed, the governing body.
The anointed are unable to oversee personally each of the 100,000 Christian congregations throughout the world.
Not the 9,000 anointed, the governing body.
The millions of Christians now entrusted to the faithful and discreet slave.
Not the collective faithful and discreet slave, the governing body.
Christians with an earthly hope today walk behind the anointed slave class and its governing body, following their leadership.
Not true. Both regular witnesses and the anointed follow the governing body. Let's get this straight. This is the only time in the article that the governing body is mentioned as being separate from the anointed slave class. When it comes to the leadership of Jehovah's Witnesses, the men of the governing body should always be thought of as separate from the other 9,000 anointed witnesses, just as they should always be thought of as separate from the millions of non-anointed witnesses. The article continues to program the reader that non-anointed witnesses follow anointed witnesses. That is not true. All witnesses follow the governing body, that small group of men in New York. Finally, paragraph 8 states a truth about the leadership of Jehovah's Witnesses.
They willingly submit themselves to the direction provided by the governing body.
Why does the governing body hide behind various terms such as anointed witnesses, God's organization, and especially the faithful and discreet slave?
Cult leaders are known to use manipulative methods to control the minds of their followers. Is there any evidence that Jehovah's Witnesses do this? Is their worship cloaked in secrecy? Are they following and venerating a human leader?
Jehovah's Witnesses claim not to follow a human leader, cloak their worship, or use mind control.
By exercising faith and loyalty now, he shows that he will respond well when the King gives him directions in the new world.
To emphasize the mind control techniques of the Watchtower, consider how the article next demonizes any sort of dissent.
We know that our real enemy is the devil, and that he does not give up easily. He has tried to use apostates and others to convince us that the teachings we follow are false.
Jehovah's Witnesses are being programmed to think that any dissent comes from the devil. This statement is an ad hominem attack on anyone who disagrees with Jehovah's Witnesses. It uses the loaded word apostate to evoke a negative trigger when a witness is confronted with information about their religion.
Some people insult those who disagree with them by questioning character or motives instead of focusing on the facts. Name-calling slaps a negative, easy-to-remember label onto a person, a group, or an idea. The name-caller hopes that the label will stick. If people reject the person or the idea on the basis of the negative label, instead of weighing the evidence for themselves, the name-caller's strategy has worked.
Just remember who is riding the Watchtower.
The greatly diversified wisdom of God can become known only through Jehovah's channel of communication.
For more information, read Captives of a Concept, the illusionary concept that holds Jehovah's Witnesses captive, by Don Cameron, and see the Watchtower Comments interview with Don Cameron. Watchtower Comments is produced by an active member of Jehovah's Witnesses. This video is not authorized or endorsed by the Watchtower Bible and Tract Society.